I've decided that 3 kegs just isn't enough. And when it gets this messy inside the fridge, it's really annoying changing over a keg. So I've decided to build myself a big keezer. So the other day I went and bought this. So it's in alright condition. It's got a few little dents and stuff that I'll have to bog up, and I'll repaint the whole thing. So previously it just had this collar with 4 taps on it. It did come with stainless backing and drip tray. So down here I had like a big stainless panel with the drip tray off. Got it with a little temperature controller. And one other little surprise, came with these little regs. So pretty keen to keep them going. So I was testing out some keg combinations. Looks like I can fit at least 8 on the floor. Another 2 on this hump here. The height of it's all good. So if I was to grab this keg, so the height's not too bad. When I'm rebuilding the collar, I'll make it a little bit taller. Currently 130, I'll be making about 190 mil. So I'm going to try to fit the gas cylinder in as well. So I've bought a few bits to get started on the keezer. Got my rust guard primer. Then I'm going to go with a hammered finish, just for something a little different. There's a few little dents, so I got some bog, putty, whatever you want to call it. Bit of sandpaper to rough it all up. And this is what it looks like at the moment. So I've taken off the collar and everything. Got all the little mini regs off, all the brackets that the old person put on. I've tested all these regs and they're all good. They hold pressure. This one here's got a little crack in the face of it, but not a big deal. I'm only going to end up using 3 anyway. Alright, so I got the freezer all primed up now. I've got all the little brackets and stuff and hinges primed as well. I've pressure tested all the regs and they seem fine. I bought a couple of bits of 185 by 30 for the collar, just so I can get that height. So next I'm just going to prep the collar and then everything gets a bit of paint. Getting ready to make a few cuts. As you can see, I've marked my 45 and my line across the top. And on my circular saw, well, my borrowed circular saw, it's got a little notch for 45. So I've set up my template so I can cut along like that. So we'll see how that goes. Now I got all the pieces for the collar cut, so I'll give them a quick undercoat and bolt it all together, and then I can actually start painting the rest of the fridge. Now that I've picked up some more kegs, it looks like I could actually fit 12 in here. I've only got 11 at the moment, but I don't think I will do that just because it'll be too hard to manage. As you can see, they're really tight. Trying to change a keg here and there would just be horrible. But it's nice to know I've got the room if I need it. This is one coat on everything. I was kind of hoping for a little bit of a different, well, it's still wet, but I was kind of hoping for a little bit of a different finish. As you can see, it's starting to do the hammer thing, but you can see all the roller marks. I used a teeny tiny roller, which couldn't move a lot of paint at once, so I'm going to have to do a second coat, unfortunately. I was hoping to get away with one, but I don't think it's going to happen. So it turns out a timber hole saw, not ideal. It's hardly cut, and see if this focuses. it's blunt already. So I'm going to go to Bunnings, buy a proper hole saw and try again. Just popped out to Bunnings, figured I'd actually get one that is meant for metal, so let's have another crack at this. So I've just started coming through the other side, so I figured I'd flip it over and drill from this side. Hopefully it'll make it a little bit neater. So one hole's almost done. So, pretty neat hole. Needs a little bit of tidying up, but that's alright. So now I just got one more to do. So as they say, measure twice, cut once. So I'm just making sure that's roughly center. Both drip trays are going to fit. And game on. So this is the second hole. This is as deep as the hole saw will go without me removing bits. So I just take that out and I get in and try to take out chunks so the hole saw can go a little bit deeper on the next run. So I just keep doing that until it pokes out the other side. So I've set out a string equal distance from that top edge so that I can try and line up bolt holes to get the fonts pretty square, which is looking pretty close at the moment. So I'm just going to mark them out and drill them. Still going to figure out if I want to use self tappers or whether I want to do bolts all the way through the thickness of the lid. So we'll see how we go. I finished the first coat of paint on everything. Unfortunately the wind picked up and blew a bit of stuff on it, so hopefully it's not too bad when I look at it tomorrow. So all of these are now done. The finish looks a little bit better, still not ideal, but you get the idea. Hopefully it hammers up nice with the new type of roller, we'll see. I could have just gone self tappers straight into the top, but then it would have only been catching on, let's focus, would have only been catching on like a mil of meat. So I figure this way I'm going through 100 mil. Body on each end should be a little bit more sturdy, hopefully. That's the plan anyway. Now it's time to put the collar together. So I've got these little angle brackets. I'm just using these ones on the side as spacers. They're not actually going to be there. Just be those two in the center. So I've got my 45 all sorted. Now I'll double check it with the square and start screwing. It might be a little bit difficult just by myself, but I'm sure I'll manage. Test fit of the collar. Seems to fit pretty well. The front looks fine. The back might overlap a mil or something. So that's how she looks. Now I just got to liquid nails it all together and hope for the best. I've got the collar on now with some liquid nails. As you can see, my skills are amazing. Probably why I work behind a desk. So I've spaced the lid off because just on these corners where I got a bit of crap that I'm going to clean up later, I don't want it to stick to the underside. So I've spaced it all up. Luckily I had some weights lying around. Now I just play the waiting game, put to dry, and then it's game time. Right. I've just finished using a paint scraper and bit of sandpaper to tidy up all this. It still looks horrible, but it's about to get another coat of paint, so hopefully that covers up all the slight imperfections. I'm adding that extra seal onto the lip now. So I fixed the lid off so I can get a rough sort of location. It turns out I've got to go on the inside of the collar. So I'm having a bit of fun chopping these 45s because, well, this is all I got. But it seems to be going alright. I'll probably chuck like a blob of silicone on the inside when they're joined. So if you look at this one, this was my first attempt, which was super duper. So I might just chuck a blob of silicone in there, close it up, so then you don't get that gap, because that's bad. So I'll keep going on that, and then I can set the height of the lid properly. So the seal's on, and it looks like it forms a pretty decent seal all the way around. at the back. So you see that I have adjusted the bolts and the hinges. So I started with the bolts right at the top, so that way I could get the lid in the correct position, like front to back. Then as I added the black molding, the whole thing just kind of went up, but the bolts can just slide, so they're all good. Game on. So this is what it looks like with the fonts loosely fitted and some drip trays. So I've spaced it out, so if I get real adventurous I can fit a third one and they'll all be equally spaced. So I just got to fit them off properly, and then I'll probably move it inside so it's not too heavy, and then I'll finish it off inside. This is how it's looking at the moment. So my latest thing is I've added this insulation up around the collar. It's just 10mm foam with a bit of sticky stuff on it, straight from Bunnings. So I probably could have cut it a little bit shorter. At the moment it goes right down here, whereas the timber actually starts about there. But it is what it is. Hopefully that holds in, holds the temperature a little better. So next I'm going to be mounting manifolds. So I'm going to mount one here. That's going to be a 2-way manifold. Then I'm going to have a 6-way here and another 2-way here for carbing and whatnot. The first 2-way manifold over here is going to be at a higher pressure for soda water and cider, whereas the 6 in the middle will just be at regular sort of beer pressures to get whatever volume I desire. Probably going to be around 10 to 12 psi, whatever that ends up being. I labelled these so it corresponds with a tap. So I've just got 1 to 8 labelled on them. One thing I am considering doing is, because now this is a little top heavy, because of that, I'm thinking I might need a chain or maybe a gas strut on the side just to help support it a bit. I'm not super confident in it, so I'll have a think about that, see what I want to do. One thing I'm going to do before I mount my manifolds is check them for leaks. So these ones straight from the factory, haven't touched them, hadn't unscrewed anything. All I've done is chuck on my duo-type fittings, my push-in fittings, and I've put on these little mini rigs. So I've got my gas cylinder here. I've put in a few extra longer lines, like this one and this one, just so to make the testing easier. I'm not expecting it to leak at those points, so it's not a big deal. So what I've got is, as you can see, got a bit of water in this. And so I'm going to gas it up to maybe 30 psi, because that's going to be the highest pressure that I run for water and cider. Then I'm just going to submerge this with all of these check valves closed. So in theory, all the pressure should stay inside the manifold, nothing should escape. But I don't know how well that will go. So if it doesn't end well, I've got some plumber's tape over here, and I'll take them out, wrap it up and test it again. So let's give it a go. Slight change of plans. These regs only go up to 23 psi, so I'll just do the testing at 20, and I guess I'll see how my soda water and cider turn out after that. So I can't hear anything, which is a good start. So there's no massive leaks, but let's check it in and see how we go. I cannot see any bubbles, which is, oh, hold on, I saw one over here. What's going on there? Maybe there's just a little bit of air trapped when I first put it in. It might not actually be a leak. So yep. So hopefully you can see on the camera. I'll try to get out of the way a little bit. That when I open up this, gas does come out, so that means there is actually gas going through the manifold, which is nice to see. Now I do see a couple of bubbles popping up here. So let's see if I can get in a little bit closer on that. See there? Go like that. Just in here there's a bubble that keeps reappearing. So I don't know what I can really do about that actually. So that one I'm going to call a success. Then I'm going to get onto the other two. I've now got the 3 manifolds and mini regs fixed to the collar. So I haven't run the rest of the lines yet, but it's going to run along the collar to an elbow, across, and then from here, my gas cylinder is going to sit on the floor. So that's how it's going to run. I just got to cut all the hose and good to go. I hooked up a fan off a video card. So it's known as a blower fan, which actually shoots sideways. Then I've just ran a little bit of flexi conduit up the front towers, and I'll see how that goes. If I need more movement of air, I'll chuck something on the collar, but everything else is set up. I still haven't attached that properly, so that should sort of sit up nice in the corner, but I'll figure that out. It's not going to break anything. So I'm going to start filling it and turn it on. So I'm going to clean the lines before I start, since everything's brand new. It's nice to give it a little once over. So I've got my T-piece, a bit of the old nappy sand, because I don't have any perk on me right now. So just going to hook up the gas to the side of the T-piece, liquid line to the top, open up the tap and run a little bit through. I'll then flush that out with water, and I've got 6 kegs ready to go already. So finally got everything in and hooked up. Got gas cylinder. I'm going to run my temperature probe to just a PET bottle and a couple of stubby coolers, or koozies or whatever some people call them. Everything's running. I've got pressure set up on these first 2 kegs. The remaining kegs are here. And then this one here is just spare with 2 lines I can carbonate, or thinking about putting a ball lock bulkhead in there so I can bottle. So I'll crank it up and wait a few hours for stuff to get cold. This is the final product. So I've got all my taps, and at the moment I'm running a brew board. So it shows what I've got on tap at times. It pulls it straight from Brewfather, which is always nice. All the taps running, and happy days.